host, Alex Kessler, rocking the friggin' DN and the Model Nodes band t-shirt, here with my co-host, Ben Bateman, in the Nike jumpsuit. How are you, Ben?
It's not a jumpsuit. I mean, it's like a
we don't know what's below the belt, so I'm just imagining a jumpsuit.
I do think it's funny. So this is a quick tangent as we start the show. Welcome to the show, guys. Thank you for showing up. We're going to be talking about lots of modern related and exciting things. You and I actually have a really fun show today because we both opened up a whole bunch of Modern Horizons 2, and like I can't wait to talk about it. But I went to a screening tonight of the new Purge movie, and you know it's like why did I do that? Is that what you're asking?
No. I'm wondering where this tangent goes in relationship to Magic the Gathering.
I go to these screenings, you know, a couple days before the movie comes out, and a lot of the other critics I see. But I used to go to everything in my entire life professionally in a suit, everywhere, every place.
Oh, yes.
Okay. I used to just only wear suits, and sometimes you actually would see me like at the office in like a hat and like a Nike thing, like every once in a while.
A jumpsuit.
Yeah, like. Number one, like many people, gained a bunch of weight during quarantine. And number two, got used to wearing like sweatpants that are really comfortable. Like they're a lot more comfortable than like tight leather belts and like uncomfortable shoes. So like tonight I was going to the screening and I was like, well, do I like try to squeeze into this? Or I could just like put on this like half zip. And then I was like, I guess this is like what people do that don't think about putting on a suit all the time when they go places. They just wear stuff that's comfortable.
Wow. I got this at Disneyland last weekend. Thank you very much.
And so I just thought it was funny because like, I do wonder once we're back to a fully normal open world and people are going places all the time and I'm used to just being out like for a whole day as opposed to like for an outing, will I go back to that? Or am I going to get used to just like dressing real cash? I wonder if the whole world is going to get used to dressing more cash after this.
It's going to be interesting for the East Coast, right? Like, the reason you did the suit thing is partially because it was an anomaly on the West Coast. Other than at like red carpet events and maybe some talk shows, most of the West Coast's formal wear is not suit. Like people do not go to the office in suits, right? I remember going to college, having grown up in LA, and like literally didn't bring a suit with me. I don't think I owned one. I think the last suit I got was my bar mitzvah suit, and like. All my roommates had multiple suits, and they're like, "Why don't you have a suit? What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I've never needed to wear one." And then like literally, I went back home thinking, he was like, "Dad, I just need a suit. What's like one that you don't wear anymore?" I still have that one. It doesn't fit.
Nice.
It was like baggy and like because I'm taller than my dad and skinnier than him, so it was like it was like definitely a little too small, but it worked out. So. It's not an LA thing, but so for people that need to know, we are talking about just as far as subject matters goes, and we can continue on that. We are both the D&D set is coming out. We're going to be talking about what the rules mechanics are, what the different mechanics in the set, how we think some of them might apply to modern, some of the cool cards. But we're also going to talk about just opening packs since basically Eldraine and a little bit before that. Wizards has started implementing new pack opening experiences. There's now 3 packs per set, plus bundles, plus commander product, plus etc. And we want to talk about just kind of like what it's like opening those 3 packs, how we feel about them. We've now opened them in a few different ways. And then how some of the cool stuff that's going to be in the commander or the new Dungeons and Dragons set that's going to be in these packs that were announced, which I think are really cool. And then we'll break down the rules.
Yeah, I think it's kind of crazy now when you think about like, so I've been into Magic since 95. You got in, I think, probably back in like 2009-ish, 10-ish, something in that range.
Yeah.
So we've both been around for over a decade of opening packs and having these different experiences. And obviously, as our lives changed over the years, you know, sometimes you buy more cards, sometimes you play more drafts, whatever, right? But the thing is, over the years, the experience of opening packs was very consistent for a very long time. Like the products that were available for the majority of the time I've played Magic in my life were very consistent products. They would come up with cool stuff. Like they would come up with something like a commander product. That was a cool thing 10 years ago they started doing. And that was awesome. And it was like new cards that were interesting. And they would do things like the From the Vault. You know, that was like a cool exclusive premium product. Nowadays, there's so many different Magic products available at all times. Whether it's like secret layers, and as we mentioned, 3 different kinds of boosters per set, premium releases, more sets, just like so much stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually pretty hard to keep track to even know what's out there and like why you should be buying what you should be buying. And I think it's actually one of the reasons that we wanted to talk about this today, because number one, Horizons 2 is amazing. It's so much fun to open the packs. The cards are incredible. I'm like, it's the most fun I've ever had opening packs, were these packs.
The collector's packs. Well, that's something that's interesting that happened to you, right? You bought a box of Modern Horizons 2 booster packs.
Draft
boosters. And then we're kind of like, oh man, this was fine, but like I don't feel like I got the vibes I wanted. And then I had opened up a collector box and you're like, oh, it's dope. Then you went and bought, you're just like, I'm gonna buy a collector's box. And you went and did it. And the pack opening experience there, though much more expensive, was like value you've opened was worth it, and the opening experience felt worthwhile. Correct?
Well, I mean, I think, I mean, much more expensive, debatable. Like, I think in reality, I think the box of Horizons is like, when I got it, it was probably around $260, something like that. That's around the range they were going for.
Mm-hmm.
And for a premium set, that's like not bad. It's less than $10 a pack, you know, you're $7-8 a pack. So you hope you open some good stuff. I saved a few of the packs for our chaos drafts, you know, just so I can put them in the box. But I was like, okay, like, and I opened plenty of good stuff in there. I got some really cool stuff, but I wasn't getting like etched foils and like really sick, like, you know, fetch lands and stuff like that. I just wasn't getting the stuff that I really wanted. So it was like about a little less than 400 for a collector's booster box. And so it's 12 packs instead of 36 packs. But let's be honest, most of the stuff in the draft boosters, I don't care about anyway. Like most of the commons, I'm never going to touch. Like they're irrelevant. The fact that I have so many more physical cards from that box, it matters to me not at all. The fact that I opened a third of the number of cards in the collector's booster box for not even twice as much, for like 35% more in my cost. But what I opened, almost every single pack had something I was thrilled about. A lot of packs had like 5 things I was thrilled about.
Right. Well, you can open packs. Like I opened a pack that had like 2 Urza Sagas in it. And I opened another pack that had a foil Marsh Flats and a regular Marsh Flats in it. Full art. So it's like, yeah, it was, especially in a set like Modern Horizons. So I've opened up collector boosters for Strixhaven and Modern Horizons. I was just like so in on Strixhaven. I also like really loved the variant versions of the cards from that set. And obviously Modern Horizons 2, there's a lot of value there. And both times with the collector's boosters, I definitely feel like I opened my money's worth, right? Like you're opening really cool stuff. The alternate art versions of things, you're getting consistent. It was the Mystical Archive, right? That was the thing with Strixhaven. That was like a big deal. And like the value we're able to get, as long as they create that value there with those cards, it becomes all worth it. Like getting 2 foil Mystical Archive counterspells, one in Japanese and one in English, like in a box, is like, the value is there. And even like, you know, right afterwards it goes down because time passes, but like in the long run they're going to be worth a lot of money. And like so from that perspective, if you could afford buying in on the first one, it makes sense. The other thing though is like opening pack, and this is Wizards' goal, right? And we haven't talked about set boosters versus draft boosters or whatever, but Wizards' goal was for multiple decades, draft boosters were it, right? Every booster pack was a draft booster. And the tried and true lesson is don't open booster packs, right? If you talk to any content creator, talk to us, don't open up draft boosters. I have boxes of my winnings from pre-releases that we use for chaos drafts now, but like of just packs from everywhere back to like, I think I have some Scars of Mirrodin's packs still left, even though we've opened a lot of those at this point. But like, because you're not supposed to open them, you're supposed to draft them. That's what draft boosters are for. It's bad value. If you're going to pay for Magic, to pay for Constructed, you should buy cards, buy singles. And the only reason to open up draft packs is if you're playing limited, because that's what these sets are designed for. The majority of testing goes towards limited. But from Wizards' perspective, no, we want you to open packs. Right?
Well, right, because
pack opening is fun. For a beginning Magic player, pack opening is fun. There's a reason people like opening packs.
Yeah, it's really a fascinating conversation because since the dawn of time, the intersection of art and commerce has always been sort of like, and I use this example to connect the two, but like the intersection of art and commerce is always like a difficult thing to talk about because like if you are an artist, if you create film, if you're a musician, whatever, like you want your art to be respected and appreciated for your art. But the people who are promoting it and trying to sell it, they need it to make money. Otherwise, they can't promote it and they can't sell it and they can't support you and you're on your own.
Right.
So with Magic, it's the most wonderful game and we all love it. And those people that make the game, all our friends who design Magic cards, they're not thinking about how many packs they're going to sell when they make a sweet card. They want us to play with the card. They want us to play with the card and love the card. That's what they want. They want us to, they know they have to sell cards for the company to work, but they have no like connection in their mind of the quality of a card they make and how successful the set's going to be. That's not like the conversation, because they're not the ones making that decision. It's their decision to be creative, to come up with the best possible version of the game they can. So when we talk about like the idea of they want you to do the thing that is most profitable for the company, they being Hasbro, they want the company to be worth the most like dollars. To do that, they sell packs. People open packs because it costs very little to make packs.
Well, yeah, yes, of course. But I guess more my point is they sell pack. That's why they focus it on limited so much, right? That's why the conversation has moved towards limited as far as the design method for decades, because limited is the highest chance people with open packs in a way that's valuable to them, right? Versus like, because every set has the, there's not a good name for it, but there's like a break point where people will just open packs, right? Like retailers exist. And if there is cards, if the card's value in a booster box is on average going to be worth more than the cost of a booster box, then stores will just open those booster boxes. There's no reason if it's an unlimited product run, this is only applicable to unlimited product runs. If it's an unlimited product run and there is value in the packs worth more than on average than the cost of the box, then every single retailer that sells these boxes is incentivized, because they make more money on singles because the markup is better on singles, just opening the boxes, until that will just have an effect on the market, decreasing the value of all those packs. Right. Like that's why sometimes you get weird outliers like Jace, both Jaces, right? When Jace was $100, where if that's the only card in this set that is worth that much money, then it becomes a lottery. And that's what Wizards doesn't want, right? But you have like one card that's worth $100. That means every other card in the set's not going to be worth anything while that set's in print. You could open up, it was smart now in hindsight to open up World Wake boxes, because you would get Stoneforge Mystics and
Celestial Colonnade
and Creature Lands. So like that would eventually pay for your box in the long run, and you would have maybe opened up a few Jaces. But there was a while where it's just like Jace was more than a box, because you were guaranteed to get one Jace in every 2 boxes on average, and so he was worth the cost of 1.5 boxes.
Right. And even then, I mean, the thing that's so interesting about the value and the concept of value as it pertains to the value of a card or a pack, it's the value that someone's willing to give you for that card or that thing, which if I open up my box of Horizons 2 and I have all these sweet cards and the price of what it apparently goes for in TCG Player per card is X, unless I take the time to set up my own TCG Player store and sell every card one at a time, I have to sell them to someone else. Yes, basically. And I have to sell. Yeah, I have to sell them to someone else for 60% of what they're worth, so they can mark up the other 40% because they're taking on the risk.
Right, which is like, the other argument for buy the card singles you want versus opening a pack, because even if you open up value, it might not be the value you want.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's what the world looked like, and Wizards realized people want to open packs, right? I want to open packs. Like that's like a thing people want to do, and then we learn and are taught, and the way that packs were being made were a system that made it so that it was never a good idea to open packs. So I'm dumb for doing the thing that I physically want to do. So Wizards sat down. I was like, okay, how do we make packs opening cool? Well, on one hand, we've now done a few different releases of master sets, which were higher value oriented packs that people were willing to pay upwards of, I think, $15. I think Ultimate Masters was $22, but $15 ish on average pricing. So we know that there's at least a market for people that want to open packs that are just worth more and have like get more guaranteed value in them, and are willing to pay a premium price for those. We've also found ways in those sets that maybe there's ways to create a better opening experience. And at the same time, for a long time, the most popular YouTube channel content was pack openings. And it's still true for Pokemon, right? Like Pokemon is an entire business model based on just people opening packs and then selling the packs to stores, or doing box breaks where people can like subscribe to donate money, and then that helps pay for the box, etc. And so there's even a model for opening, but opening a pack is really boring because it's basically like, here's a bunch of cards that don't matter. Maybe there's an uncommon. maybe there's an uncommon, like there's a Path to Exile or a whatever. The one rare, and 1 out of every 6 packs is a foil. And maybe the rare is mythic. And most of the time those cards suck. So like opening Magic packs classically sucks. But then they came out with set boosters. Then they came out with collector boosters. Kind of looking at both of those demographics and like, okay, how do we make pack opening the most exciting, both from an opening experience perspective and a value experience perspective? And let's create 3 options. To the extent where right now, buying a booster box of Modern Horizons 2, unless you're going to draft it, a draft box is the worst option. A set booster is the most affordable and will get you the best value, and a collector booster is a guaranteed amount of value. It just costs $400, but you're guaranteed to make your money back on it.
Yeah, I haven't spent $400 on a box of Magic cards maybe in my life, if I'm being honest. I can't think of the last time. Maybe for some sort of retro draft or something. That's a lot of money to spend on a box. Yeah. Like a normal box of actual boosters that you buy of a draft booster set is like $100. So like it's 4 times as much for a third of the packs from a regular box. It's just the step up from a regular Horizons box to a collector's box is not as steep. But I also, when I ordered my initial box of draft boosters, I didn't choose draft boosters because I thought that was the best choice. I just forgot that collector's boosters and draft boosters were both available because that was some change that happened at some point over the last couple of years that like, and then COVID, like I just didn't really interact with it. I forgot that existed. And I went on Amazon. It was the cheapest one. And like, that's the one I ordered. Looking back, it's like, that's pretty confusing. We're content creators. We've talked about this on shows before, and it like sort of still escaped me that was even a thing. I have to think that most casual players who get into Magic have zero idea of the difference.
And then to the extent that there's problems, right? I like when I bought, and I'm glad I did, because we'll get into what's in each of these, but I bought a box of Japanese Strixhaven. I pre-ordered it, set booster, thinking it was a draft booster box. Also, this was before I knew that you could get the Japanese archive card in collector boosters, which I also pre-ordered. And that like those are the 2 products I bought. I didn't buy a regular box of Strixhaven. And the Japanese set booster thing's like, oh, this is not what I thought this was. This is a totally different thing. And then I opened it. I was like, oh, this is better. This is actually what I probably wanted here. Because my plan was to just open this. You can't draft with Japanese, I don't speak Japanese, so it would be very hard for me to draft Japanese products. Yeah. Opening it is fine. And so another reason that like getting set boosters in foreign languages is fun because you get the cool things. And so I want to kind of walk through really quickly what the differences between these are, because it is a little confusing, right? And that, as you're saying, it's hard to know. And they did launch in COVID, right? Like the set booster article was written in July 2020. And the first collector's booster box was for Ikoria. So both of them came out literally maybe there was one earlier, but I believe Ikoria was the first one. People are going to tell us we're wrong in the chat and love to hear it.
Sounds like there's a reason that I was confused about this.
Yes. Because it did not exist in you have not been into a store and played a game of Magic since these existed. So 3 versions. And I can talk towards, and SRP is hard because it's different everywhere, right? But for Modern Horizons, kind of talking through it, but normally it's like $250 for a collector's booster, $120 for a set booster, and under $100 for a draft booster. And a draft booster is what booster packs have always been: 15 cards, a set amount of rares, commons, uncommons. Sometimes there's like a special slot, like Strixhaven. Every pack came with one of this, like a mystical archive card. When we go back to Innistrad, if they're flip cards, guaranteed there's going to be 1 flip card in every pack, and some of them will be rare. Some, like they can do cool stuff with it now. But the classic thing is these are meant to draft 1 rare on average per pack, etc. Once in a while, there's foils. Sometimes there's 1 foil in every pack, same kind of deal. The next version is set boosters, and these are super complicated. And I have the whole article that Mark Rosewater written out to kind of explain it. But basically, there are a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 12 Magic cards, 14 cards total. That's what it is. There's a thing right below it. I don't have to count. And every pack is going to come with a art card slot, and those are cards that are literally made of the artwork from the set. I have a bunch right here, so you can see them in video form. They look like this. They're just key artwork from the set that look really cool, and on the back is just information about them. Something that's very cool about the Dungeons and Dragons set is that they're going to be all the monsters from the set, and they're going to have the stats in D&D of what those monsters are in D&D. So you can use these cards in D&D to keep track of monster stats and to fight against them. which is a cool alternative thing for that. But for this, normally most of these sets have these cool art cards. That started actually with Modern Horizons 1. Then you have a land slot. It's always a foil land. In the collector boosters, they're all etched foils, but there's always a foil land. You then have, where's the number? Art card slot, set booster, land slot. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 6 connected commons and uncommons. It's the reason that these are bad for drafting. Like, you cannot draft with these packs very easily, and it's because these 6 slots belong together. They have something in theme. They're all black cards, or they're all one faction, or they're all have the same mechanic. So they're all meant to kind of lean in together. So as you're reading them, you can like, oh, this is a cool story being told together. You then have what they're in this article they call the fireworks, and there is a head turning slot, which is always going to be an alternate art. It's because now they've added all these cool new alternate frames, right? So you have like the sketch cards or the full art cards or whatever. It's going to be one of those, but there's going to be commons and uncommons that can be that. So it's going to be one of those, but you don't know which one. So rarity isn't necessarily guaranteed. And then there's a wild card rarity slot that has, this could be anywhere on the scale. It can be a rare, it can be a mythic rare, it can be an uncommon. And so in different percentages of what those are. So that has different rarities. It keeps going. But this is the point, right? Like, as you're opening it, stuff is cool. Everything I've described is cool already. Even the 6 random cards have like a theme to them. You then have the rare mythic slot, which is just regular rare mythic slot. This is part of the big finish. And then you have the foil slot. So there's always a foil here. There's always a rare. Both of these are going to be dope. This is why you can like pull 2 full art things in a set. And the last one is what they call the epilogue. And often this is a token card. It's always a foil token that double-sided, or every 25% of the time it's a card from the list. And that is a selection of cool reprints. All of them can be really valuable or iconic. Everything from a muscle sliver to a pact of negation. They add and update what's on the list every set. So often they're adding cool stuff that's new, and it's just meant to be something really cool and flashy. But the idea is every single card in the pack is cool. As you cycle through it as a pack opener for video purposes, here's cool stuff. And the value is there beyond what would normally be a draft pack, where literally the only card that matters is 1. So like literally every card in this set matters. They're not as premium as, say, a collector's booster, where like it's this taken to the next level, but it's a similar kind of experience. And then collector's boosters is that everything is foil in that middle slot, and you get the art card. You get the big finishes, but both like guaranteed foil. It's just like kind of upping the ante of what I just described collectively, so that they're just even more worthwhile, and you have more options of getting premium cool cards.
Yeah. Now, what's the price difference between the collector and the draft? Because I know that, the set and the draft. Like, how much more expensive is a set booster than a draft booster?
The Strixhaven set booster pack on Amazon, our collector booster pack is $23. A set booster pack is 28 divided by 6.
28 divided by 6 is 20. It's 4 and change.
So 4 and change, and then 100 divided by 36 for a regular pack. This is on Amazon, so it's like in a bundle in a weird way.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, so that makes sense. It's basically it's basically $375, 5-ish.
So then a set booster box is $104 of Strixhaven. A draft booster box is less than $100, and a collector's booster box is $200.
That makes sense. So it's not actually very much more expensive to get a set booster box than it is to get draft boosters. It's a little bit more expensive.
Yeah. Correct.
Which is why the value would be much higher for Horizons 2, and that's what I should have done, which is frustrating. But what are you going to do?
Well, you shouldn't have opened it, right? Like the point of draft boosters now is to just draft them. All of the rules that people have always said about booster packs, draft boosters is still true. Don't open them. Keep them closed. It's set boosters are what you should. If you're looking to just open packs, just buy a set booster box. And if you're looking to have a little bit more guaranteed, if you're looking to spend money but want a lot of really cool stuff, then buy the collector's booster. But the collector's booster is the most expensive, and people are pretty much across the board saying the best value for your buck in Modern Horizons is a set booster. Right. If you're going to open packs, because there's all of the stuff I just described is just enough of premium product and the chance of opening some cool stuff that you get it. And one other thing I will say is that pack opening is better in aggregate than it is in a single thing. If you're just going to open up one set booster, just don't open packs.
Right.
But if you're going to open up a box,
you get the value.
You get some of the value of what's in there. And the more packs you open, the better the value is over the long cycle. Don't go too deep. We're not giving you, like, you should still probably just not open packs. Like, if we really want to be honest, just buy singles on all of this. If you want to invest in the modern instead of buying a collector's booster box.
I don't agree. If just for pure value, 100%. We're talking pure value, like in terms of a couple dollars. Like, I will say the collector's booster was such a fun experience to open, and because of what I opened out of it, I would have, I'm sure, been able to more focus what I wanted and just buy the single cards, and I could have gotten probably a smaller stack of exactly what I wanted. But the experience of opening packs is really fun. Like, it truly is really fun. And so getting that experience for that money was a worthwhile experience, much in the same way that, like, going to see a movie, my life doesn't change, but seeing it in theater is a great experience. I'll pay for that.
Yeah. Sorry. If you don't enjoy opening packs, or if you're looking for specific cards and you have a budget set aside and you want specific cards with that budget, don't open a collector's booster. But if you have like 20 commander decks and you don't know exactly which cards you want, but you're going to open packs and see what cool things you get and maybe buy a few singles on top of that, then it's worth it, right? Like, that's what I'm doing with it. I have enough decks that I can shuffle these into in a cool way that I don't even know what I really want. And diving in and being like, oh, which one of these it gets, especially when it gets to like random commons and uncommons, because that's the opposite of what happened. There's a chunk of Magic that I just like don't own any uncommons and commons for. Basically everything from past Shadows over Innistrad to now, or to Kaldheim. I just like don't own uncommons and commons from those sets. And what sucks is like stuff when like there is an uncommon or common that becomes for $20 or $10, and I'm like, oh, I just don't own any of those, so I don't have to pay it. And if I just drafted
you would have a chunk
versus
of them
on Arena, I would have whatever amount of the green. What's the green one drop that I'm blanking on? That's like really good.
Green one drop.
Protection from blue and black. Until in a turn, draw a card if someone casts a blue and black spell this turn.
Veil of Summer?
Veil of Summer, thank you.
Is that worth $20?
I think it's worth like 10.
Wow, crazy.
So yeah, so it's what I would say is that the value is no longer not there to open packs, and it is fun to open packs.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for specific cards and you'd rather spend your money on constructed than just having cool cards, and you don't have a place for just having cool cards as part of your life, then it's still better to buy packs or to buy singles.
Yeah. Have you gotten Draft Horizons 2 yet?
No.
Me neither. I have not gotten to draft it yet. I've just opened a whole bunch of packs, but It seems really fun. I was even thinking about maybe this Friday, maybe just like going. I'm sure people will still be drafting at FNM probably.
Yeah. Or organizing one. I have a box, so.
Yeah. Well, the thing about doing the whole, like, I have a box, let's all open my boxes, is that you don't get any cards. Not that I need Horizons 2 cards.
That's true. But it's also free, right?
Bought a whole bunch. Yeah, for sure. But I notice anytime I ever do that, I always feel like that experience that I like of drafting a bunch, and that's how you pick up a bunch of the cards from the set, is a fun experience.
Sure.
One that I like. Yeah, but they're both valuable. So that product is out. It's an awesome product. I think it's one of the better products that they've made in quite a while. I'm really satisfied with it. The modern metagame is awesome. We've talked about that a little bit, and just how much of an impact this seems to already be having, which is really cool. And then on top of that, there are previews that are now starting for this brand new Dungeons and Dragons set. Joe Manganiello previewed a card. You see that?
No, but that's not surprising. Yeah. That's sweet. What did he preview?
This like super sick wolf. It's like green for a 3/3.
Oh, yeah. That's dope.
Whenever it attacks, if you control creatures with total power 6 or greater, draw a card, and then it also for 5 mana or 4 mana can turn into like a 5/3 till end of turn.
Yeah. Werewolf Pack Leader. Yeah. Until end of turn, Werewolf Pack Leader has base power and toughness 5/3 and gains trample and isn't a human. Yep. And then that's like an interesting mechanic of this set, of the like, if you attacked with creatures with total 6 or greater, is a thing that would have been keyworded if they didn't do the thing that they're doing, which I do want to talk about. But yeah,
right.
So we're going to do bigger reviews of this set as we move forward. We've obviously spent a good half the episode talking stuff, so we're not going to be able to go over card for card, and we'll be able to talk to that. There's cool cards. There's a birthing pod for artifacts. There's beholders. So, but getting more into like just like the rules of the set and what that's looking like. And there's a few different like key mechanics. I guess the first one we can talk about is that, right? There's the it's almost like a ferocious-esque ability of like, if 6 or more power of creatures have attacked this turn, bonus. And that is meant to be the dragon tribal feature of this set, right? Like that we're going to have, I think they said 16 dragons, which it looks like there's a cycle of 5 one color rare uncommon dragons, then green dragon, black dragon. It'll be the blue dragon, red, like it'll be all 5 colors, because that's in Dungeons and Dragons. I know this because I read the Dragonlance novels. So like the color dragons are evil. They're all evil dragons, and they'll probably be one of every color. And then
they're called green dragon, black dragon. Gotcha.
Yeah. They're like in Dungeons and Dragons, if you meet a green dragon, they're a poisonous dragon, and if you meet a black dragon, they have acid breath, and a red dragon has fire breath, a blue dragon has, I want to say, ice breath, and then I don't remember what the white, I don't think there is a white dragon, or if it might be white, or if there might be a different color, whatever. There's 5 color, or yellow dragon might be what we see, or purple, whatever. I forget what they all are, but they're colors. And then there's the metallic dragons, which are all good. And so there'll be 5 metallic dragons. Each of them will be a gold colored dragon. So we have the red, white one, or a joke. There's adult gold dragon, which is red, white, 3, flying, lifelink, haste, 4/3. And there will be probably a silver one, a bronze one. There's like 5. Okay. There's like the shiny metal ones. And then it looks like we're getting a cycle of legendary. Well, it doesn't look like we know we're doing this. We're getting a cycle of monocolor legendary dragon. So we got an Ebon Death Draco Lich, which is a 2 black 2 zombie dragon, 5/2 flash flying. It enters the battlefield tapped, and then you may cast it from your graveyard if a creature not named Ebon Death Draco Lich died this turn. So it's kind of like a grave crawler-esque mechanic that you can keep bringing it back, which is cool.
Got it.
Flash flying, 5/2 for 4, and then. So there'll be dragons of those, and then there's the big one. There's what's it called? The Tamamet, the like dragon god.
Tiamat or something
Tiamat,
like that?
yeah.
It's like he costs Wooburg 2 for a 7/7 flying.
Yes.
So it enters the battlefield, or you cast it. Search your library for up to 5 dragon cards not named Tiamat that each have different names. Reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. It's a beast of a card. That's going to be something. That's going to be a hell of a commander.
Yes. Yeah. Well, another just like 5 mana dragon commander. I don't think it's better than the other ones, but we'll see. But yeah, so there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on, right? There's dragon tribal. And since it's called Dungeons and Dragons, the other actually keyworded mechanic is dungeons. And this is a really cool mechanic. So basically, it's kind of a combination of like companion meets learn meets sagas.
Right.
And so basically there are 3 dungeons. There's Dungeons of the Mad Mage, Lost Mine of the Phandelver, and Tomb of Annihilation. And they're literally magic dungeons. They're on a magic card. They're D&D dungeons. It has like a room that you enter, and then when you enter that room, you get a thing, and then you can choose to go to the next room, and then there'll be a branching path where you can choose to go either left or right. And then as you go through these rooms, you get benefits. And the way it works is they exist outside of the game. They're not in your sideboard. And then as soon as you play a card that says venture into a dungeon, you get to either you then summon is the word I'm going to use. But then one of the dungeons that you have to the side, and you have to pick one of them, but it could be any one of the 3, enters the command zone, but enters an outside of game area that you can interact with. So the same place that experience counters go or infect counters go, it exists in that realm. So
it's not an exile zone.
It's not an exile zone. It's not in your sideboard. It's in the zone that energy lives.
Got it. Okay, like a special zone.
That's still referred to as the command zone. I think is they all live in that same zone, but that's where it's living. It's living in your infect area. So these exist in your thing, and then you venture into it. If you venture into it, it now enters your command zone, and you have to choose which one you do, and until you finish it, you can't pick another one. And then you add a marker into the first room. And then if an ability triggers for it to move forward, and there's stuff like there's a Planeswalker, Elowick of Tumblestrum that has a plus venture into a dungeon, so you can go to the next room every turn as their plus ability. Other different things have different reasons you do so, and as you move forward, you get more benefits. So for instance, we'll talk about Lost Mine of Phandelver, since Ben loves Delver so much. So you enter
Delver dungeon.
You enter the cave entrance, you scry one. Then the next time you trigger the ability, you would move into, you get to choose. You can either move into the mine tunnels, create a treasure token, or Goblin Lair, where you create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. Then if you venture again, you have the choices of moving into 3 different rooms. Depending on which room, you can access different ones. And then at the very end, you enter the Temple of Dumathoin, and you draw a card and the thing goes away. This is one of the easier ones. There's one that lets you summon a big 4/4 black God Horror creature token with Death Touch at the very end. Another one lets you draw 3 cards and then remove them. You may cast one of them without paying its mana cost.
Well, so let me ask you this. So you mentioned that you can pick any of the dungeons. As they continue to reveal more dungeons, is it like I play a thing that says venture into a dungeon, and by like there's potential I'll have 13 dungeon cards? I'll choose which one I want?
No. So there is so there's only 3 cards. There will not only ever, because we might revisit this mechanic in the future, but in this set and for the time being, there are only these 3 options.
For sure, that's been confirmed.
Yeah, for sure confirmed. There will not be any more dungeons previewed. So venturing, you will choose one of these 3. You can have all 3, and when you do your first venture, depending on what matchup you're in, or depending on which game state you're in, you might pick a different one if you're playing a dungeon deck. But all of them will only do one of these options.
And what if the card that you used that had you enter the dungeon dies? Do you still continue through the dungeon?
Well, each it's a triggered or activated ability, right? So you will, if you have no cards left that say venture in the dungeon, you'll just stay in the room you in. You got the benefit from the last room you were in, and then you won't move forward for the rest of the game.
Got it.
But if you get another card, if you draw the next one, you can keep moving forward the dungeon. The dungeon isn't attached to the thing that entered the dungeon. You're entering the dungeon.
Got it.
The thing is like motivating you down the dungeon path.
It sends you to the dungeon path. But so like, let's pretend that I enter the dungeon with my card. Now I'm in the dungeon.
Yes.
And now I draw another copy of that same card and I play it. I enter a separate dungeon. I can be in 2 dungeons at once.
You can only be in one dungeon, and every card just continues down that dungeon's path. That's why it's always venturing into the dungeon, both either summons the first dungeon, entering the first room, or continues down to the next room.
I see. Got it. Okay. Well, because what's interesting about this is like there are certain mechanics that when they were described to me were very confusing. One that comes to mind I remember was mutate. I remember mutate was a pretty confusing mechanic when it was previewed. Mm-hmm. In practice, once I started playing with mutate, it's very simple. It like doesn't feel complicated at all. It actually just makes total sense. But when we talked about it in the first place, when we talked about mutate, when we talked about adventure, there was like a bunch of stuff over the last couple of years that felt like kind of weird. And but that's the whole thing is they spend so much time testing these cards out. Yeah, that they test these cards out and they find that they play well, and if they don't play well, they're not going to print them.
Right.
Pretty much.
And I think with this, it's like it sounds way more complicated and way more like, oh, this is going to ruin Constructed, or it's going to be so annoying to play against this in Commander. Like, I think these are like really simple. It's just sagas, but instead of once a turn, like Mutate has so many weirder corner cases, right? Like cloning a Mutate creature or bouncing it or like flickering it. Like all of those are weird with Mutate, right? Yeah, like in this, you play a card. It says venture into a dungeon. You pick a dungeon. You get that first effect. The next time you venture into a dungeon, you get the next effect down the line. The third time, you get the next effect. The fourth time, you finish the dungeon. Cool, you're done. You get the big benefit. That dungeon goes away. If you play another card, you get that dungeon again or a new dungeon. There'll be some cards that say once you complete a dungeon, you've completed a dungeon. So now you get the bonus, right? You get this gets double strike as long as you've completed a dungeon. So it's like, it's fine, but it's all pretty self-explanatory. This is a mechanic that like, I think people are like reacting to it a little bit more scared than I am. I think this is going to be like, this seems so much less complicated than Mutate or even Companion, right?
Yeah, I mean, exactly, because all this looks like to me is that you have a card and it's in your deck box and you play a card that says to bring that thing out, and then you put it on the table and now it's off to the side just like a Commander would be, and little things are happening. Right. One thing I can tell you from Suspend being such a mechanic that I love so much is like that it's okay to just have a card that is over to the right that's not in the game, that's just like ticking. One thing is happening per turn. It's an extra thing to remember. And if the creature that is in the dungeon dies, you stop advancing in the dungeon. It just sits there until you play the next creature that has you advance, correct?
Yeah.
So it stops even being a part of the game once the creature's dead, and then you have to re-enter the dungeon. But so you don't re-enter. If you play another card, you're already in that dungeon. Correct. That just moves you through that dungeon.
Yeah. So it's more like energy, right? Like theoretically, we are always outside of a dungeon in every game in Magic forever. For the future of Magic, every player will always be just outside of a dungeon. And then as soon as you play a card that lets you enter the dungeon, you're in the dungeon. And you get to choose one of the three that exists. You probably, we're going to see how the tournament ruling works, but you probably could bring it up in your phone, especially in like a limited event. Though my guess is these are going to be pretty bountiful. And you'll move down the dungeon. You'll just enter it and start doing the rules. And if your opponent can fight against it like any other card, and it'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think the dungeon mechanic is pretty cool. I actually like it. I like these 3 dungeons. I think all of them are pretty simple and just seems like extra cake, just fun stuff.
And I imagine in limited, they're going to play a lot like learn cards, right? Where just they're going to be really cool, really sweet, flavorful ways of it's something like this in treasure. And it's what treasure, food, and clue tokens were used for in Modern Horizons 2, which is... It's cooler ways to have draw a card on a card. Right? That's what Learn was. Learn was like, oh, here's a way. It's like slightly worse than draw a card. It's slightly worse, especially in older formats, than draw a card. But it's sometimes better than draw a card. And it allows us to put cantrips on effects that normally wouldn't be powerful enough at different converted mana costs, and this puts it over the edge. So it's kind of, it's like better than scry, worse than drawing a card, and that middle ground is something that Wizards has always wanted, and they're finding a really creative way to do it. That's why we're seeing treasure so often, right? That's what treasure is. Treasure is slightly better than scry, slightly worse than draw a card. It's ramp, and it's powerful, but it's not broken, and that's what food was, and that's what clues are, and I think this is in a similar boat of like that same type of effect, but now you don't have the weird accidental brokenness of, oh, artifact tokens in play can just be broken by themselves.
Yeah, it is interesting to think about the fact that I love cantrips. I've always loved cantrips. It's like one of my favorite things. If a card draws me a card, then I always feel it's better. I think I'm not alone there. So it is fun to think that I do think that they know that. And I think that all the things you're talking about are their way to play with that. And that's just more, I think, of what this is. And it's because I think most people feel the same way. Most people feel the same way about Magic, which is that drawing cards is fun. You usually want to do that. Being reactive to things is usually fun, like having a way to answer something, or interact with someone and not get pantsed. So I think anytime that they figure out ways for us to do that more effectively and in a more common nature, I think it's good for Magic. I actually think it's same thing with good early, good late. The split cards, these are all things they pay attention to. They get feedback, and that's how they then design cards.
Right, and this is my complaint towards the world. Every time they preview one of these new mechanics that's really cool and is doing something totally out of the box, there's always going to be feels like 30% of people, and it's probably less than that, 10% of people and fans, if you're one of these, I apologize, who just complains of oh, this is a new, too complicated, it doesn't feel like a Magic card, this is different than what I'm used to.
Right.
And it's kind of Learn was dope. I love Learn cards. I have a foil, what's it called, Phoenix, sitting right in front of me. Right here. Here's a Japanese first day class. I think Learn was such a cool mechanic and was one of the more fun limited things. It was the last time I was excited to play Standard on Arena. You have, or it's the first time in a long time I was excited to play Standard on Arena. You have Companion, and you had even Companion was cool. I know Companion broke Magic in half, but I think
it was a tough one. Yeah,
I think the solution for it was great. I love Mutate. I Adventures are great. I don't know. I like them playing with the space that's available to them, and especially because this stuff feels not broken. Right. That problem with Companion is that it was too powerful. It wasn't deck building restriction bonus cards are not too powerful.
Right.
It's just free card is too powerful. Like free creature that you consistently have no matter what on the turn that you get to play it is too powerful. But like if they printed something else, like you start with 5 extra life, if you only have creatures in your deck, like maybe that's better. Like maybe there's ways to do companions that aren't as broken as what we got. And I'm sad we won't see it because Companion was so broken that they like decided that we'll never get that. But
well, it sucks too because like I know they're they're ubiquitous. Like people play with companions, they're very popular, but I don't like them as they are. I liked them the way they were. I think that they're more balanced in their ability to be a part of the game now, but I don't ever want to spend 3 mana to put something into my hand and then cast it. That's the antithesis of what I want to be doing. Like spending a bunch of extra mana. Like I understand that it's powerful to have like a free card essentially in all games if your deck can support it, but the way they were designed is a much cooler way. Like they should have just cost more, and that's what it should have been. They all should have just been more expensive if they needed to be.
Right.
Or had a different restriction.
Yeah, obviously Luros and Yorion are still seeing a ton of modern play.
Tons, yeah.
And so like it's hard to argue when Luros is the most played creature in modern that the fix that they did wasn't the correct fix. But it does also mean that none of the other companions other than those two see any play, versus all of them were seeing play in some versatile way. In Commander, it sucks. I have a cool Obosh deck. My deck is awesome, and it would be much better. Like, it's kind of bad, and it would be better if I could just play like Obosh for 5. Like, Obosh isn't good enough.
Even in Commander, you can't...
You have to pay the 3.
What? That's so dumb. That's so stupid.
And it's like a real restriction there, right? Like playing with only 1, 3, 5, and 7 drops is a real restriction in Commander. I'm trying to build, I literally have a pile. I have an ALK altar of Luros with me right here. I'm going to show it off because it's like really cool. I didn't say the bad word. I almost did. And Carson, who was on our episode. So it's an old border Luros.
That's really
Hopefully
cool.
it focus. Okay, it's not going to focus,
really,
but
it looks awesome.
Yeah, it's Luros, and it looks really, really dope. He did a whole series of them. I highly recommend it. And I'm trying to build a Luros deck. This pile of cards right here is a Mardu, Akiri, Miara, Luros pile that will eventually be a deck. And the only reason I'm playing with these 2 cards is because they're the only 2 cards that allow you to play 3 colors with Luros. Literally, your choices are, if you're going to play with companions and Luros, you have to play Miara. So you're just stuck with black elves for some reason. But you can't play green. There's no green-white thing. So I can't get green-black Luros elves. I have to play, it's either white-black. You have a few white-black card options. Your horse friend that you love so much. And then, and then the knight that does blinky things.
Knight that does blinky things.
I don't even know his name, but there's a legendary creature that's white in colors from command that has companion that lets you exile things, and then you can put things that are exiled back. He's not good.
Got it.
He's like kind of fine. But so you can do, those are the 2 options for black, white, right? And then Akiri's the only option if you want to do an additional color. I would kill for a 1 black, like a different 2 color 2 thing to play Luros in a different color combo, or even just like not Akiri and Miara, a medium elf tribal commander and a medium red-white artifact commander. Whatever. Okay, we don't have to complain about this, but it's such a huge restriction.
Myself, I'm a big fan of Akiri.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. I'm excited for Akiri to be just like a cool threat in my Luros commander deck, but like, it's a real restriction. I have to go through a lot of effort, and I'm still gonna have to pay 3 mana to get Luros into my hand.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the few examples I can really think of like a pure fail, in design, where it's just like, guys, like this should, like,
I want to see more. Well, I want to see more of them. I like hope there's a commander set. Like I want to like feature Hermit Druid, who's a Magic content creator and TikToker, more, because he's created like this cool almost semi commander format where he's like doing Karuga with what's the green guy who comes down and I can just look at it. It's right here. Kodama. It's Kodama, Shakashima, and Karuga commander deck, and it's bonkers, and it's super cool. And I have my Obosh one. I'm now trying to make Luros happen. I've seen like they're just so sweet and awesome that like I wish you could. I want more companions and I want more partner commanders. Give me as many cool things in my command zone as possible in Commander. It's so bonkers.
I agree with you. Actually, I think that the partner commanders are one of the best design choices that they've ever come up with. I think it's such a cool addition, especially because the cards themselves are sweet cards. Mm-hmm. I think they're not just good because they're partners. They're also just like sweet anyway. That design is like really, really awesome.
Yeah, I think the mistake of the original partners was there wasn't enough.
Yeah,
it became, and there's no way to fix this problem. I think there's two mistakes. One, it made just 4-color decks possible, and I think 4-color decks in Commander are kind of lame. But that's a Band-Aid that they were eventually going to rip off, and there was no way that they weren't going to do it. And once they did it, the cat's out of the bag. So like, fine, 4-color Commander should exist in Commander. It just ends. It's not my favorite. 2, though, there's just not so many options, and eventually just like you figured out these are the 4 best ones. Once that was solved, it kind of became boring. They added 36 of them, I believe, new companions or new partners, and like cat's out of the bag. There's no best option. There's no best combo of these cards, and which just allows you to come with all these really cool creative ones. Now I just want what I would love is at least one more cycle of allied colored gold ones, and I honestly probably would love 2 new allied colored partner commanders and 1 more additional cycle of enemy ones. So kind of the inverse of the last time we got them, just to get that full 3 options for each. Let there be more creativity in your color combos. Make it so you don't have to play one of the 2 really powerful blue-green ones. Like come up with a bad blue-green one that has like a really cool like tribal synergy, or like leans into an ability that's not dumb and broken like Thrasios and the other one, and like come up with a cool black-white one that's not Tinma, that's not that good, but then also isn't like 5 mana, doesn't do anything for 2 turns. I don't know. There's cool. It's such a cool ability. I want more of it so badly.
Yeah, I think it's really, really cool too. And I think that they know that was a success. And I think they'll continue to lean into that as we get more Commander Legends products. I think as we continue to get more products in the Commander sets, like that feels like a direction they'll for sure go.
I would be surprised if we don't have a Commander Legends set within by the end of 2024 for sure. And I would even say 2023 is likely.
Earlier than that for sure. Yeah, I think it's 23.
Commander
Legends was a fun set. That set was really good.
It's more by the launch of Commander Legends. I don't know if there's enough time in the release. Like I think they already had 2023 planned out. There's one more rule thing that they did with this set that we haven't talked about, and that is ability words galore.
Yes.
So normally, historically in Magic, there are 2 types of named mechanics on cards. There's keywords and ability words. Keywords, really easy to remember, right? They're trample, first strike. They are words that have rule text associated with them, even if you don't have reminder text. Extort is this. Dash is another one. Suspend is another one. Learn is one kind of. Those are keywords. Keywords are words that if like you just put on the top of the card, you don't have the reminder text. Players have to know them. Like they make Magic harder because the more keywords there are, the more words I just have to know before I can play. But they make it so you can put more stuff on cards. It's simpler. It's easier. Often when we go to sets, that's like the big mechanical pushes. The other one is ability words. And most of the time people interact with them the same way, right? Ferocious is an ability word. Magecraft, I said. Metalcraft is an ability word. Landfall is an ability word. These are things that have no rules text associated with them, but often are grouped together and do all the same thing. All landfall cards are when a land enters the battlefield, thing happens. All Magecraft cards are when a spell is cast, thing happens. All ferocious things are if you have a 4 power toughness thing, or 8, I forget if ferocious or the other one, whatever. If you have X amount of thing happens, you unlock this card. Delirium, if you have 4 of these things in your graveyard, this ability is unlocked. And normally they're used for grouping to make it easier to remember, like, oh, this probably just works like those other cards. Once I know this, it's easier to understand. The Forgotten Realms is deciding to do a different thing with it, which I think is actually really cool, though I've been in arguments on Twitter and TikTok all day about this. They're throwing that out the window. What they're instead doing is using it for flavor. So instead of using like flavor text, well, and the thing, the difference between ability and keyword is keywords are standard font. Ability words are always italicized. And classically and always, if you see a word that's italicized on a Magic card, it means it doesn't have any rules function. Like it doesn't mean anything in a rules ability.
Flavor text, sure.
And ability words though, right? Like my point is, an ability word will always have written out next to it every single time all of the things it does.
Okay.
Like a Metalcraft card says,
like join forces or
right. Metalcraft.
Yeah.
Like Metalcraft says, Mox Opal says, if you control 3 or more artifacts, this taps for 1 mana of any color.
Right.
You don't have to have it say Metalcraft, right? Everything that the card does is written on it. Metalcraft is just there so you know, like, oh, this is going to work like every other Metalcraft card. It's a reminder text and often used as flavor in regards to how this interacts with other, like...
Gotcha.
Like,
okay.
So stuff.
Ability words versus keywords.
Right.
That makes sense. I'm following you now.
But the Dungeons and Dragons set is using it like flavor text. So like, for instance, Black Dragon has the ability words Acid Breath. When Black Dragon enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls gets -3/-3 until end of turn. Green Dragon has Poison Breath. When Green Dragon enters the battlefield until end of turn, whenever a creature an opponent controls is dealt damage, destroy it. No other cards that we know of so far have those words that do the same thing on them.
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
It's naming the ability of the dragon purely for flavor, but to like make a real understanding, and it adds a lot of flavor, right? I know way more about a green dragon now because I know it has Poison Breath, and this is what Poison Breath does.
Right. That's like super interesting that you bring up. Why, with the decision that they decided to do that for this one, do you think? Like, was it just for the pure flavor of it? Like, that's necessary because it's D&D?
I think part of it is that. I think part of it is the other type of card you see it a lot are these moments that happen in the story. So you find the villain's lair is 1 blue, choose one. So Ben, you and me are adventuring. We're adventurers. We just found the lair of the villain. We've been working to get to this tour. We have 2 options. We can foul their scheme, counter target spell, so we can stop what they're doing, or we can learn their secrets and like delve into their bookshelf and find all their stuff. And then we would draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards, right? So it gives way more flavor to a blue 1 counter spell or draw 2 card modal spell.
Yeah.
Loot 2 modal spell. And the other one is like giving like so much of Dungeons and Dragons is like, I have a character and I've learned multiple abilities. And so there's a cycle of commons that are like inspiring bard. Also bards are magic. Just when we were talking about things that we're looking for this set, that was like my number one thing. Hyped that we have bard creature type. Yisan needs to be a bard. Let's errata that immediately. But inspiring bard, I think part of it is also there's so many spells in Magic too, or in Dungeons and Dragons, right? That they're not going to make every single spell, but this allows them to make a creature that enters the battlefield and either casts Bardic Inspiration, classic bard spell, target creature gets +2/+2 and turn in Magic, or Song of Rest, you gain 3 life. So we like you get more of all of this customization part, which is part of Dungeons and Dragons, into Magic in a similar fashion.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably the set to do it in, if they're ever going to do it. I do think it's too much. Like, I don't think it's too much like it makes it bad. I'm still really excited for the set. Like, without a doubt, I'm excited for the set. But I definitely think that I know that I will see these cards enough that I will get used to the different cards. Probably, I guess. I hope so. I also know that like there are plenty of people who like can't remember the names of cards to keep them straight ever. There are plenty of people who can't remember the names of abilities on cards or what the slight variation of one thing is from one thing to another thing. Again, like the difference between certain mechanics, if I try to explain to you like goad and provoke or something like that, like I'm sure there's a logical explanation why they're different, but they're also in my mind like right now, I probably couldn't explain clearly which either one of those did. But you
don't need to know that.
So yes, totally. I understand for flavor purposes, it is cool. I just think it's sort of that thing of like, if I'm a newer player maybe, and I read Poison Breath, and then I see the next card says something breath, acid breath, I might not read it closely enough and just assume that they do the same thing because that's what Magic teaches you.
Well, but I think it's the opposite. I think if you're a new player, because like coming from a new player's perspective, you just think, oh, abilities on Magic cards are sometimes just named. Right, like I don't.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. I guess maybe to an old lazy player, then I see it. But I just think it's a little too much. It's very cute. I don't know that it was necessary. You like it?
Oh, I want this forever. I think Magic should incorporate this technology in every set moving forward. I think it's way cooler to have a card. Like I think it would be way cooler that, let me find a random card that would maybe have this.
I think what you're saying is that from a flavor perspective, it illustrates what the card does in a much more unique way. That's cool. This dragon has acid breath. That's what this does.
Yeah. Like if this is Sedge Sliver, and if it just said all slivers have swamp strength, this creature gets +1/+1 as long as you control a swamp.
Yeah.
Like, I would remember that better, actually, than having to remember all of this text that's here. Like, I think it's like it gives flavor to moves.
That's a fair point too, because one of the things with memory is that like the way memory sort of works tends to be that the more specific an image you can create in your mind, the easier it is to remember the memory. So if you're like trying to remember exactly what a card does and it's described as acid breath or fire breath or whatever, and that keyword is illustrated in the actual ability, it's much more likely that you'll remember it. Which, so I guess to that end, it's a lot of text, but it's true.
And some of it like ties it together, right? Like one of my favorite cards I saw today was Gelatinous Cube, which is like one of the few. I've only played Dungeons & Dragons a few times. I know like more from Dragonlance novels than the actual games. I played RPGs, but Dungeons & Dragons specifically not a lot. But Gelatinous Cube is a thing I have fought, and they're scary. But it's / slow and dumb. It's 2 black for a 4/3 ooze. Engulf. When Gelatinous Cube enters the battlefield, exile target non-ooze creature an opponent controls until Gelatinous Cube leaves the battlefield. So it's like an O-ring effect on a creature. And then Dissolve. X black, put target creature card with mana value X exiled with Gelatinous Cube into its owner's graveyard. So you can like permanently get rid of it instead of if they accidentally, they could try killing your cube and you could like pay to put it in their graveyard so they don't get their creature back, right? So you can is
your recent DNDing getting you like that much more hype for this, you think? Like you like,
oh, I want to play D&D now. Like for a while I was kind of like, oh, I'm fine playing Savage Worlds, this like different RPG campaign system. But like after this, I'm like, I've debated transitioning everyone to D&D, learning the rules of D&D. Yeah, I'm definitely.
Wait. So what do you do?
It's called Savage Worlds.
Oh, okay. I thought it was the same thing.
No. So Savage Worlds is a set that is like a rule system designed to be able to better create your own worlds. Or like, so for instance, the first time I played it was with Marshall, and he created Ravnica before they created the Dungeons and Dragons Magic module. So we got to play like a campaign on Ravnica together. And then he did like a Star Wars one, right? So it's like built to be
cool.
In some ways it's cool because you like there's no classes, there's no like all the items aren't like labeled by realm or whatever, there's no store, you get to create your own. In some ways you're also like swimming in a vacuum of nothing, so you have to do everything. So go back and forth. This looks really cool. I'm definitely motivated to try maybe doing more Dungeons and Dragons versus that. But Gelatinous Cube, like these two abilities by themselves would be hard for me to figure out like, oh, what's going on.
Yeah.
I get it now. Like, oh, it's coming down. It's engulfing a thing. And then after a while, it digests its food and it dissolves in the cube.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And
And I do understand. Like, I guess my initial point was I don't hate story. People think I hate story. I think that too many keywords and too many complicated things on Magic cards can get a little much. I don't necessarily always like reading Magic cards that have so much text. And if this becomes a more common thing, it definitely feels like that thing. I'm trying to, maybe my brain gets used to it, but I tend to find most of the time in any set that has too much text and too many cards, I don't like opening the packs and drafting it. I tend to just ignore.
Sure.
And not read a lot of the cards fully.
And this is what I'm hoping this does. And obviously we have to get our hands on it. I think this helps with that problem, not hurts it. I think that like on Kaldheim, when you have as much text as on Gelatinous Cube, which is a lot, it's hard to remember all of the things this does. Now I know, oh, it has two abilities. It does two things. Like like think about Questing Beast, right? Right. I still don't know all of the things that it does. If you were asking me what are of its keywords, I think it has haste and death touch and first
vigilance,
strike,
maybe
vigilance, maybe. Yeah, vigilance for sure. Vigilance
can't be blocked by.
It's not first strike and death touch.
Power 1 or less or something.
Yeah, something like that. But if it had its main keywords, can't be blocked by creatures 1 or less, and then like always hunt, and it like always hunt makes it so it hits a planeswalker. Like it would be, my brain would be way more remembering of like, oh yeah, it has 4 abilities, not just 3.
Sure.
And this like if we're moving to a world where cards are just going to have a lot of text on them, which based on the last 5 sets, that seems to be the case, I think this is technology that helps at least organize all of that text into rememberable
I get it.
Chunks.
I can see both sides being valid, but I think but needless to say, I think
a lot of people agree with you. There are a lot of people online that are like, no, I don't like it. This is so much. It's so complicated. It's going to make searching for abilities way harder, blah, 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 blah. So it's fine. I can see arguments in both directions.
The one thing I did want to talk about really quickly before we get out of here is something that you guys are going to hear this a week afterwards, but I have now released 2 songs. I played one of them on the end of one of our streams. Music has been a passion of mine my whole life. I've been playing music since I was 12 years old. And a year ago, I decided to record an album and self-produce it, self-finance the whole thing. And so 2 songs have now come out from it. And I just booked a tour. I booked a 12-city, technically 10, because 2 of the shows are in LA, tour for the month of November, basically. And most of the shows are weekends. It's mostly Thursdays and Saturdays. There's a couple Tuesdays. But I booked the whole thing to be able to essentially come and do private parties. They're all private events. I am booking a private space in a city. I'm flying in, playing a show, getting to hang out with you guys. It's kind of like a meet and greet / show type of thing in every single city. So if you've listened to the podcast for a long time, if you found the YouTube channel and you've ever wanted to hang out, that's kind of what this is. And the tickets went on sale for the tour. The song is live on Spotify. You will be able to find the link to the tickets in the description of this video. And if you're listening on audio, find me on Twitter. It's in the description on my Twitter. The website on my Twitter is that. It's also on my Instagram. And there is a longer, I'm not even going to bother saying it because no one will remember it, but
there's a link below.
There's a link below.
As long as Ben does his job and sends Marshall the link for the link below.
Which I often say I'm going to and rarely do. But this time, hopefully I do it.
This is me mocking him to motivate. That's my main motivational tool is like joking ridicule.
But yes, I'm super excited about it. And I'm hoping to have friends come out to certain shows with me and people in the community and the space. And also a lot of Tappy Tokla sent me a message earlier. She's going to try to go to the Chicago show. Lots of people in our space. I might even try to drag Alex out with me to one of these shows and see if I can get him to, meet people. And if I do that, then I'll let you guys know on the show which one he's going to be at.
I do love meeting people.
Yeah.
It's like my favorite thing.
They're all great cities. They're all great cities. I'm going to Austin. I'm going to Boston, Columbus. I'm going to New York and Orlando and Austin and Nashville and all over the U.S. So
I do think one of like the great ironies of our friendship is that you're actually the introvert, the like person who does stuff on camera and plays guitar and does live shows, and I'm like blatantly the extrovert, the person who like does an audio only podcast and plays nerd video games in my apartment. So it'll be, I'm excited. I'm super hyped. You don't have to do much convincing to get me to go. Yeah. Last few shout outs before we finish up. Thank you to our patrons. You're the reason that this podcast happens. We appreciate you every time. And if you guys aren't, there's a whole extra bonus amount of content every week on Patreon that's exclusive at the beginning of the audio and video podcast that we post there. And this week it's all about Fast and Furious 9. So if you want to hear our thoughts on Fast 9, check that out. Also, this episode is sponsored by TCG Player. If you look below, there's a link to TCG Player. If you click on that, it just remembers that you clicked on it. Don't worry about, we're all being spied on by every website we've ever been on, but it puts a little cookie on you, and anything you buy from TCG Player, they'll know that we sent you, and it helps us out. So if you buy stuff on TCG Player, it doesn't cost you anything. Just please click on the link, and that way it'll remember that we sent you. So that's super helpful. And then last 2 things. I guessed it on a podcast, the Half Step Down podcast. There's a link below with their link tree for Apple Podcasts that should be coming out today, if not next week. So we'll link for the next 2 weeks to make sure it gets out there. It was a super blast. If anyone follows me on TikTok, is on TikTok, it's Eidolon Blossom's boyfriend. He has a cool podcast about music and other stuff. We talked about magic and making toys and other stuff. So it's really cool. Definitely recommend checking that out. And last but not least, follow me on TikTok. I make a bunch of TikTok content. I post like 6 videos a day. Today, ton of D&D new set content. If you want like up-to-date reactions to Magic preview cards as they come out during preview season, that's the best place, because I'm just talking about stuff all the time. I'm going to talk about Zariel, Archduke of Avenues. As soon as we're done recording this podcast, you can go back, check that out last week. There you go. We're not going to talk about it on the podcast. It's going to be TikTok exclusive. Us talking about that Planeswalker.
Talk exclusive.
And thank you. Everyone, yeah, we're on Twitter. That's the last place you can find us. Big shout out to Marshall and Michael and Rick. Thank you for helping on the back end, making this happen. Thank you all of our Discord and Facebook moderators. You're the reason that those aren't giant garbage pits of problems, and we appreciate you greatly for that.
We do.
Indeed. And we'll talk to you guys next week.
Bye, guys.
This has been a production of Time Traveler Media, sending podcasts into the future.